show, for the second installment of Know Your Neighbors, I've got Gary Ramsey with me today, TurboCobra. Say hi, Gary.
What's up, everybody? Hey, Greg.
We can see that the Turbo Mustang is in the background in all of its glory.
That's it.
When I texted you earlier, you said you were working on it today. What were you doing to it today?
You guys probably saw the video from a couple of weeks ago where we did the repair on the oil pan and all the back and forth trying to get that, fitting in there correctly and getting it to seal up and all. I think we had an issue after the wreck where it put a slight bow in the cross member that has a very tight gap. So I was just kind of fighting with that. So today I was reinstalling the oil pan, hopefully for the last time, and hopefully it's going to seal up and not leak this time. So
it was obviously a pretty hard hit if it's bending a rail that the cross member comes into.
Lateral forces on the on the hit, I don't think were terribly great, because the two things that were hit from that perspective were basically two signposts that have a breakaway base. Okay, so they can only take so much force before they break away, which they did break away. He completely took the sign down. So that's what put the crease in the front, and the other leg of it put the crease there. Underneath the car, it rode across two medians and an intersection, and put in the up and down and the weight of the car, probably 2,500 pounds, 3,000 pounds, coming down on the curbs and stuff, put a tremendous amount of pressure on things up front. I believe that's what did most of the damage up front there.
I'm looking at your shirt, and I guess I want to clear the air right now. Are you a Ford guy? The
very first car I ever wanted and saw, just because it's, my generation or when I grew up, was, a late 90s Fox body Mustang. So the first era of the fuel injected Mustang GTs, that was it. That was the car I wanted. And so when I got, a good enough job and made enough money, I bought a Mustang Cobra, which was the nicest Mustang you could get at the time. That was in 1995. So I have an allegiance to Fords and Mustangs from that point of view. But I am not, by any means a purist. I mean, in my driveway, there's an F-250 that I drive. There's also a Nissan out there, and there's also a Volkswagen. So I probably tend to lean a little bit the Ford way. If it's quality, if it's cool looking, if it's fast, whatever, I'm impartial from that point of view.
What's the engine in the Mustang? It's a Supra, isn't it?
Matt's car has a 2JZ GTE twin turbo Supra engine in it, out of a, kind of a 98 to 2002 Toyota Supra, which was the last generation that they made of the Supras.
I think for a while, I haven't seen it in a long time, and maybe you have. It's obviously your channel, but there was some fallout when you were going to put that engine in a classic Mustang. But I think people have figured out it's way cooler to do something one-off than it is to sort of buy in and just do what came from the factory.
Well, yeah, and yeah, there's definitely. I'll probably get about, I would say, 2 to 3 drive-by comments a week on the whole Toyota Ford thing. I'll leave them all out there. So if you ever want to go see some fun stuff, go check the comments out. Every once in a while, I might, have some fun and play around with them a little bit. But I leave all the comments. I don't worry about it. Just let people say what they're going to say. And to the point you were making, if this was a super rare car that I did this to, I would agree with those people. I mean, it would really be a disgrace to do something like that to a rare car. Even, your Carmen Ghia would be way more rare than this Mustang. I know they made over 1 million of these in '65, and they're still a dime a dozen. I've always been a fan of the Supras and the Supra engine platform, which is known to make, have tremendous, power potential, because it comes with a forged crank from the factory, billet aluminum block, all the, the really nice stuff to make a great platform to make power with. If you decide you wanted to make 600, 800, 1,000, 1,500 horsepower, those platforms are really good for that.
I do have a question about the turbos and all the horsepower that you were just mentioning. You seem like a horsepower guy. You actually had a TurboCobra. I think you've actually got, if I remember right, don't you have some videos on your channel about the TurboCobra?
When I opened the YouTube channel in 2006 or whatever, whenever YouTube went live, maybe a year after they started YouTube, I created the channel. My channel's been on there that long, and there are videos going back that old. If you just sort by the oldest first, you'll see a couple of videos of the original TurboCobra. Some people think that, I'm naming this a TurboCobra, which it's not. That just happens to be, the channel name. It is a real Cobra. Now, even that it's not rare. They made a lot of them, and there was really nothing special about it. It only made about 15 more horsepower than a factory GT at that point. So yeah, you asked about the turbos and the channel TurboCobra, and basically 3/4 of the vehicles in my driveway out here have 1 or 2 turbos on them, and if you don't have an appreciation for just pure acceleration and the adrenaline that can come from that, you probably wouldn't connect with the whole turbo thing. But if you've ever driven a turbo car, or especially a fast one, to really get a full appreciation of what it's like, you need to ride in a 500, 600 horsepower turbo forced induction vehicle or supercharger. But turbos have, with that slight lag effect, the way that comes in, and when they really come in strong, it is a feeling that I would highly recommend you experience before you die if you've never done that. When you get up to 600 or 800 or even 1,000 horsepower, the real TurboCobra of the channel made about 1,400 horsepower before I sold it to start working on this. And so 1,400 horsepower in a turbocharged vehicle is, it became a little too scary for me, and I'm not afraid of much.
So now, where my question was going is, have you been a quarter-mile track guy? Because we've never seen, or at least I don't think we've seen any of your cars hit the track.
Yeah, there's 2 videos of track videos. There's a video of the red TurboCobra, the original, what was my car, and it was making about maybe a high 9-second pass at 140, 150 miles an hour. It's ran a best of 590s in the 8 at 121 miles an hour in the 8 on drag radials. There's a video of this one at the track racing a Camaro. Matt was going to the drag strip pretty much every Friday night there for a while, and it just going with his buddies. It's not a fast car. The 2JZ in there, while it has tremendous potential, is bone stock, which is 300 horsepower. So, So it's not terribly fast.
I was, of course, in my mind, I was glorifying this 9-second Mustang, thinking it would be great to have you and Darren face off.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And if you've ever ridden or know what it's like to drive in a car without power steering and a spool, it is chirping around the corners. When you want to pull into a parking spot, you're pulling up, backing up because you have a very narrow turning radius because of the spool.
Plus, you're probably 15 turns edge to edge on your wheel.
Yeah, and it's you got your 1,500 horsepower car going to Walmart, but you look like an idiot backing it up, pulling up. You got a crowd standing around you going, "What the is this guy doing?"
But you look awesome. But you look awesome leaving the parking lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's the #1 comment I get when I give people rides in the Volkswagen, is that it smells like what they remember old cars smelling like, which kind of blows me away a little bit because all the interior is completely new. There's very little in that car that is old other than the metal shell, and that's been stripped and painted. And but it's the smell of the fuel coming out of the motor, and Volkswagen's got about that far from valve to muffler. so you get it right off the tap there. But yeah, it is pretty fascinating how that's what everybody mentions.
And if you've driven the car for a little bit, that smell will permeate the inside. And that's what the smell to me, a lot of what you smell on the inside of an older car is that, it gets in the cloth and the carpet and, and whatever. And it gets, if you drive it and wear it around it long enough, it'll get in your clothes and, and you'll smell that way.
Well, let's see. I kind of want to take a different direction and talk a little bit about, you did a few videos, and I know it's been over a year. It's probably been closer to 2 years, where you talked a little bit about Six Sigma, and you're involved in an industry that has nothing to do with cars. I don't know whether you want to talk about what that industry is. Doesn't really matter to me. But the Six Sigma, what do you do with that? What is your role within that? Or maybe just talk about it a little bit.
Lean and Six Sigma were kind of born out of manufacturing in kind of the late 80s, and that's the term that's used in Six Sigma is defect elimination.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in our world, it's mistakes, it's broken processes, it's inefficient things, it's where people do duplicate work. You know, and Lean and Six Sigma are just methods for going in and, you know, kind of conducting consulting or workshops to take a process and break it down to its most, you know, finite building block, if you will, and examine that for what it is, and ask the question, does that need to be done? You identify lots of bureaucracy, lots of things like, well, that's just how we do it, or, well, so-and-so said we had to do it that way. It's just amazing how somebody said something 10 years ago and it's still the rule. I mean, it's people just, and it's everywhere. Lean and Six Sigma are just frameworks, they're tools, they're methodologies, they're very detailed for helping you streamline your operation, and it can be applied to about anything you do. One of the issues we had was wait time for customers, for patients when they come in every day to sit and be dialyzed for 4 hours. We'd have them waiting out front for like 40 minutes was the average. Literally just putting that process through the Lean and Six Sigma methods took it from 40 minutes down to 15. The average patient is probably between, you know, 60 and 75. They have multiple illnesses, and they're not happy because they don't feel good. You know, they have gotten to the place where they need dialysis to live, and you don't recover from end-stage renal disease. It is a death sentence. Once you get that, you die with it, okay? And that's 3 days a week, every week for 4 hours. So if you can take their wait time, so they've already got to come to you. Many of them ride on public transportation. It literally becomes an all-day affair for them. So anything that you can do to simplify that, to make it more efficient, to give them back that time, because we're already taking up so much time with them, we'd choose to do that.
What I heard in there was probably a little different than maybe what your intent was, but it's interesting to me. I find that people who are really good at whatever it is they do, whether that's working on stuff in the garage, whether it's, you know, putting out cool things where they work, have a purpose, and that purpose is a much higher purpose than whatever it is that they're doing. Right. And you've told me before that you work in the healthcare IT industry, and, you know, I kind of scratch my head and I go, well, okay, you know, what's the purpose behind that? Well, I got to keep the computers running so the doctors do their thing. But it sounds to me like, and I may be reading too much into this, but it sounds to me like you're coming from a place where you are interested in what the end product is to the patient coming through the door. You're not just making sure Dr. So-and-so has his computer running.
I look at the place that employs me as my career, not my job. So, you know, I'm interested in, you know, not what's 8 to 5, what do I need to do today, how can I get out of the day, or whatever, but what's the purpose of, why does my company need information technology? I mean, what is the value, and how does that help serve our patients, which is how we collect revenue, which is how I get paid.
I think it's interesting. I think the stuff that we do in the garage is very much the same way, which is why you see a lot of people restoring or working on something that means something to them. If you know, if these cars weren't given to us by our parents or grandparents or whomever, the passion wouldn't go into them. It'd just be another car. Why should I blood, sweat, and tear myself to death over this thing, right?
Exactly. And, you know, I think one of the things that that the average YouTube viewer that is interested in getting into doing a serious project on their own in their garage, that may be watching your channel or my channel or many other channels out there, I don't think they have a full appreciation of really what it takes to do a full-blown restoration and what all goes into it. I'm not trying to scare anybody away. It's definitely doable. There's nothing extremely hard to learn about it, but it takes a tremendous commitment and effort. And you've referred to this many, you know, at least a few times in your videos, and I'll mention it here too, that the YouTube community, you know, its purpose and what you get from being a contributor and recipient member of it is not just the technical information on, you know, on how to spread Bondo or or spray metal flake, or, whatever it is you're trying to do. It's the inspiration you get, the encouragement that you get, and you're going to go out there and get started on whatever it is you're doing on that day, so you can make a video about it, so you can talk to your friends about it and have them talk to you. I mean, and if you didn't have that, you may not go out there and work that day, and there might be a lot of days that you don't go, and the project might eventually get abandoned. And I could see that easily being the case with this project for me, because, in the middle of it, I was way in over my head, and, could have easily abandoned it, and YouTube was, your help and your encouragement and viewership, along with, many of the other guys out there that are watching us right now, are a big part of, keeping it going. And, again, I didn't mean to slide or belittle the technical aspects that you learn. That's a big part of it too. But I'm sure you probably share those same, thoughts about the inspiration that comes from being a part of the community.
I share it with people all the time who are, I don't know, outside the gates, if you will. They haven't bought in, they every once in a while they look up 59 Buick and they look at a video of a 59 Buick and that's it, and I can't stress enough how important the social aspect of everything is. And it's because I think, how do I want to say this? Out in the real world, that's a bad way to say it, but outside of the YouTube community, outside of the hot rod community, a lot of what you get is negative feedback. Why are you wasting your time on that? You spend all your time working on the car. You're never getting anywhere. The last time I came over was 6 months ago, and this car was still ugly and not in one piece. When are you going to get it done? And that road is so long. I mean, for me, it was way too long. But even on a fast one, you hear some guys spend 2 or 3 years, and I think that's a pretty fast restoration if you're starting from frame off or close to. And there's so many people who will tell you to stop. And the folks on YouTube are the only group that I've ever been a part of that will constantly tell you, no, you're making progress. Sometimes we lie and say the finish line is closer than you think it is.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard to get there. I think that's the big deal with the YouTube community, is that it's a very positive push forward.
One of the things I don't do a good enough job of is, is just expressing that appreciation in my videos. Sometimes at the end of the video or even making the video, I just kind of get in a hurry and just wrap it up and zip it up and edit it, and it's gone. But for those people that are watching your video now that also watch my channel, and to you too, I just want to say I really appreciate, the support, encouragement, the just the recommendations and ideas.
Oh, you bring up a really great point. It's kind of weird. YouTube works in the past, right? Sometimes I'm sure you do it. I know I do it. Sometimes I'm so amped up when I get done doing something, I go right upstairs, I edit the video, I put it out on YouTube. So it's really close to real time. Other times it might be a week before I get to it, and by the time it's gone up, I'm already to the next step. And there's tons of guys, and they have great suggestions, and sometimes those suggestions, mix with one another, and sometimes they're diametrically opposed. And I know there was a point at which people's feelings got hurt because, hey, I told you the right way to do it, and you did something that I said not to do. Well, you had 5 other guys telling you to do it this way, and sometimes you just gotta let something fly, and it's whatever you can afford from a financial or time standpoint at that moment in time. And I've always felt horrible when somebody gives me a great piece of advice and I find that out 3 weeks after I've already done what I've done.
Yeah. And you're right about the whole thing about everything is, by the time it's on YouTube, it's already happened. And then by the time all of your viewers have had a chance to see it, it's been a month, in some cases. And the issues we had with painting the top, some of you may remember, but we painted this top about 3 or 4 times, and that was just part of me learning. And you mentioned about Yahoo the other day, and that he had to do a retake, and we all if you didn't have to do a retake of some kind on your project, you just are way better than the rest of us, or lucky or something. But
I made it part of my process. Everything I did, there was a retake.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. I mean, I think I did enough on this to build 4 cars, but I watched one of Slow SRT. Well, he used to be Slow SRT. I think he's like Shut Your Face Garage. I don't know. I think the guy's having some identity issues because he keeps changing vehicles, and I'm not sure what's going on there. But
well, now Gary, you're sponsored by his channel, so I would think you'd know more about your sponsor here than you're letting on.
Well, I don't know. He just gives me a lot of money to say good things about him and not say anything mean about him. And so if I want to keep the money coming in, I have to be careful about what I say.
Yeah, you got to know where your food's coming from.
Exactly. But I remember watching a video of his one time. I was doing some back taping on jams or something, and I was like, what is back taping, and and how do you do it? And he had a really good video showing you exactly how to do it. And the guy's a professional body guy. I mean, it's what he does for a living every day. And, and is a professional. I mean, he gets paid to do that. And even his video was not titled How To. It just happened to show up in a video. He was doing that. It was like, by the way, if you ever need to back tape, here's a quick, easy way to do it. I proceeded to back tape the whole trunk jam on the car and the door jams with 1.5 inch wide tape. And it left a huge blow through area. And so rather than having I don't know if this is showing up, but rather than having a little bitty, strip down here where you have the overspray blow through to not create the hard edge, I had a huge amount. I mean, it was blow through coming all the way under the here. My corporate sponsor, he let me know about it, but he was back then he was nice. He would be very careful not to hurt my feelings and things like that. But now he just pretty much tells me straight up, hey, you really screwed that up, and if you don't start getting your act together, we're going to pull our sponsorship. I mean, just a matter of fact, that's just how they are. But
well, did he at least send you a roll of like 3/4 inch tape to keep that from happening again?
He suggested I get a roll of 3/4 inch tape, and that'd be the preferred way to do it. I said 1.5 inches, but actually it was 2 inch tape that I used. And when you fold that over, you end up with at least, pretty close to 1.5 inches of floppy area for that to blow under. But yeah. And so I made that as a how-to video.
Well, so I'll just direct anybody who has any questions about back taping to that. I'll put a link down below on this video, how to back tape.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet video there for sure.
I remember at one time I was putting my Bondo in the refrigerator to give it a longer kick time because it was so damn hot out. And I just always wonder, is the first chunk that comes out of my Gia, when it finally starts to fail, is it going to be because of the refrigerator, or because I mixed it with something, or because I put it over something that I didn't blow off or clean with grease and wax remover, or have enough tooth on it? What's going to be the reason for the first failure?
In a way, the body work and metal fabrication, to an extent, there is some of that, as well. I mean, like, you don't have to make the perfect rust patch panel. You can get away with 70% good, because you're going to have body filler over it anyway, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Clearly, the more straight you can make it, the less amount of filler work you can do. And in the end, it may save you some time. It'd be interesting to do a study on that. How many hours extra do you put into making the perfect patch? How much time does that save you in body work later? It'd be kind of a Six Sigma study if you wanted to apply that to body filler.
I know back in the 80s, and I know there's a couple guys who used to watch my channel, and I think they still do, that I've talked to, who were body guys back in the 80s when Bondo was the magic answer. You didn't have to worry about metal, and it wasn't because they were trying to get away with one. It was because that's how it worked. And they wouldn't, sometimes they just shove like screen from windows back behind there, or little fiberglass, whatever it was, and then just pack it full of Bondo, because they were able to get those cars out the door as fast as you could get them. I know Darren told me a story about his boss making him sweep up Bondo dust and put it back in the can and mix it back up so they'd have more filler.
There used to be some Bondo factory video. They showed you that if you have a rusted out area, you just tap it in and create an indentation, and then apply the long strand fiberglass filler over it first. And they had a spray rust neutralizer that they put on it. And then you put the filler, and they literally were showing you outside with no power tools, just all with they had a sanding disc that would go in a mandrel and go in a drill that you put, you'd sand it with that, with a drill, and really crude, rough, no feather edging hardly at all. And then, put some primer on it. And, back then with the lacquer paint jobs, you could get lacquer in a can and just spray it over it and it blended in. And there was no, no need to do a blend panel or all this other crazy stuff that those guys do today. So it was just very entertaining to watch an expert from the manufacturer show you how to use their products in techniques today that we'd all just laugh at and say, wow, I can't believe they would do that. I believe they've been removed. I looked for them a while back and I couldn't find them. So,
and in all fairness, the guys who did the work back then, that was what they were trained to do. They didn't do it, like I say, they weren't trying to get one over on anybody. I think they were just trying to do what they were going to do and, crank cars out the door.
I still make all those same mistakes, and I just edit those out now, not because I'm trying to hide them, but just it's not relevant to what the project is.
I think one of the times he was over here welding on stuff, I had just showed him how to do a certain type of butt technique or what, fill in the blank. And of course I get all these comments on my channel. Hunky Scott is the most awesome welder in the world. It's like, oh man, talk about breaking my heart, but it'll definitely give you a little humility when you find out you're not the star of your own channel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that was the case. Matt was working on the project. We had a little bit of that, playing back and forth, and Matt was definitely the star of this whole project. And, people tuned in because of the father and son and the mistakes, and, not because of anything I was doing, that's for sure.
When you see some of the guys who do these really great videos, they seem so effortless, and yet it's the most difficult thing you can do, because you've got to say what you're going to say, you've got to communicate what you're going to communicate, but in very few words in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and the one thing that I'm, even in the evolution of my editing, where everything's sped up and it's, get to the end result, don't show me so much about how you got there and all that. Just show me the end result, but show me a little bit about how you got there so I can see that. So I would take, 5 minutes of milling something down and do 20x on it and get it down to 30 seconds. But 30 seconds is even too long. You don't need to see 30 seconds of that. Show me the start and do a, cross dissolve into the finish and cut out almost all the middle, so even within the speed up and condensing it down, you can still get it down even faster. And I know you and I both watch Casey, and you don't have to have everybody see every little thing. You can literally show something for 1 or 2 seconds. And the beauty of YouTube is they can watch it again, and they can hit their pause button and look at whatever it is they want to see in it. Rather than me try to do that for them, let me build in this photo that I'm going to show you. Let me put 6 seconds of, lead time on that so you can see it for 6 seconds. I'll just put it for 1 second. It'll be a flash, and there it is, and we're on to the next thing.
Gary, thanks for dropping by the garage here. I had a ton of fun talking with you. Again, I have no idea how this will come out in the edit, but thanks for stopping by.
All right, Greg, I appreciate it. I really appreciate the invite, and you give me a chance to participate in this, and hopefully your viewers will find some interest in it.
I know they will, Gary. I guess that's it. Don't let your meatloaf.
Take care, sir.
Question.
See you.
All right.